Foremost means more. More training, more information, more ways to grow your business. Find out what Foremost can mean for you at foremostagent.com. Click on Foremost Means More.
Jack Flug is Managing Director in Marsh's Financial and Professional Liability Practice. He spoke with Insurance Journal's Young Ha at a recent Professional Liability Underwriting Society D&O conference, where he shared his thoughts on innovation and creativity.
Today's environment, innovation and creativity become a linchpin in being able to distinguish oneself to clients and prospects. I think that clients today and prospects are looking for more from their brokers and from their advisors than merely to place a transaction. I think that what they're interested in is to make sure that the people that they are partnering with are well tuned in to the issues and the facts and circumstances that impact the business that that particular client is involved with. And what that means in many instances is to try to be a little bit of a step ahead, if you will, of your client or prospect, and to understand that business so well so that you can then come to them and say something along the lines of, I noticed that you were engaging into this type of a transaction, and as such, have you considered perhaps the following, because it may impact your D&O insurance in this fashion. And so my view is that that creativity, that innovation, the development of a new product or a new structure to address the risks that these companies are facing becomes a gigantic differentiator, if you will, between that individual and other individuals in what we now have as a very competitive marketplace. My background has been on the claims side for many, many years. My view very simply is that the best person to understand how a contract works is the claims person. And that's as a result of the fact that they typically see when the claim comes in where it does and doesn't sort of provide the coverage. And so the claims process becomes critical in two fashions, from both a brokerage and from a carrier standpoint. Obviously, both companies want to display to clients and prospects that they are at the apex of their profession when it comes to the handling of a claim. From a client standpoint, what becomes very important is to understand a few things. From a broker, I believe that what they're looking for is a trusted business advisor to be able to counsel them, both their in-house general counsel as well as their outside counsel, to share with them experiences that they have had in similar situations so as to help guide the process for them, and to also take up the debate with the carrier when there's a coverage dispute. It's very easy to relinquish that to coverage counsel. It's very easy to say, I'm going to sue everybody. The real art form, I believe, is when the broker is capable of understanding the dynamics of the parties involved and ultimately getting to a resolution. So I think that's critical from the broker side. From the carrier side, I think that what's important to a client ends up being their claims paying capability. So do they have a robust claims department? Do they have a very experienced claims department? Have they seen many, many situations before? Are they large enough to absorb significant losses? If you end up partnering with carriers that perhaps are not as experienced and well-versed, then you risk being in a position when you have a claim, and a claim is very emotional for a client, especially in the D&O arena, that you risk having a battle on multiple fronts. It's bad enough that the client has to fight the plaintiffs. The last thing they want to have to do is fight their insurance company. And so therefore I think the process needs to evolve from the very beginning. The regulatory landscape has been an evolving landscape for the better part of the last 2 years. I think what we've seen is there's been an increase in the number of regulatory activities brought across the board with regards to a variety of industry disciplines. So whether it's life science and pharma, whether it's FI, financial institution, whether it's general manufacturing, you just see that the various branches of the government have chosen to bolster their staffs in an effort to make sure that the various constituents in these industry practices are abiding by the regulations that are out there. I also find that it's something interesting, and that is that certain branches of the government are looking to what I'll call dust off, if you will, some of the older regulations that are on the shelves and try to reinstitute them. Now, from a very selfish standpoint, I and my firm and colleagues of mine were responsible for developing a product. And this product is a unique one from a regulatory landscape. So as an example, there's a doctrine out there called the responsible corporate officer. And it is something that the Department of Justice has recently decided that they were going to, as I said, dust off and put into effect, primarily now for life science and healthcare companies, but our concern or expectation is that it will have long-reaching effects to various other institutions. And the traditional D&O policy may not be the best tool to address that concern. And so I think we're going to see much more of that. I think that we're going to, and that goes back to the first question you had about innovation and creativity. You need to be up on these things because you need to be so pliable so as to address these issues as they come up for your client base. I think the issue is that you have financial supermarkets. You have institutions that are so complicated, they do so very many different things. As a result of that, the traditional underwriting process that's been employed for a long time unfortunately ends up being insufficient because we find that the next situation or any situation that comes up is outside of the sort of scope of the questions that were asked during the underwriting process. So it becomes difficult for an underwriter to do a whole lot of due diligence, to feel as though they're comfortable with what the inner workings are of that financial institution, to ask lots of questions, and then to find that the situation, litigation, scandal, claim, whatever you want to call it, comes from the 2 or 3 areas that they didn't ask a question about because it was an area that was a little obscure to the financial institution. There is a lot to be said that in the underwriting process there's a lot of work to be done. There is a lot of questions that are getting asked, a lot of due diligence, as I said earlier, and on top of that you have to add a lot of luck because you have to hope that after all the process that you've just gone through, that when you do put your capital at risk, that you're doing it with an institution that is sort of minding its P's and Q's and addressing its concerns, whether it's ERM or anything else, in compliance in a competent and robust way.